Hello and welcome to the second in our series of videos explaining how to use our MyEmailer email marketing software. So in the first video we've made a template. Now we're going to make a list of people to send it to, and in the third video we will combine the list and the template so that we can send our first mailing. So, my lists. Now as you can see in my lists I've already got a couple of lists that I've made. And these already have addresses and details for them. What I'm going to do now is create a new list so you can see how this all works. So let's give it a name of test, and once I've done that you can see that the name test appears in my lists. Now if I click details I can change the name of it, or I can give it a description, and once I've saved that I can then finish. I can then add addresses to it because at the moment, as you can see, there are no addresses in the list. So let's add some addresses. There are two ways of doing that. We can add them manually, or we can import them from a spreadsheet, which I'll cover in a minute. So let's look at adding them manually. Now, I obviously want to choose test because that's the list that I want to add the addresses to. And then I have two options here. I can add them from another list that I've already created in MyEmailer, which I don't want to do. I want to add some new ones. So I'm going to choose manual entry and click next. And here I can just add as many email addresses as I like, and click add, and do the same here. Click add, and I can keep doing this until I'm satisfied that I've added all of my email addresses. Now don't worry about these fields here for now, we'll come to that in a bit. Once I've added all of my addresses I click finish and I'm back at my lists, and if I click on addresses now you can see that these two addresses that I've just added are now on my list. Now I don't want to use these because they're fake, so if I delete them we now have a list with no addresses, and what we're going to do now is we're going to import some data. So we're going to click import addresses and we're going to choose test because that's the list we want to import the addresses to. Now I need to browse for a file, and this needs to be a CSV file or an Excel file containing the addresses to upload. Now here's one I made earlier, and as you can see I have a list of addresses here. Now what you should never do is put addresses in this first column, because this first column is used by the software to identify what is in the column. So we've called this column here email. Now if you wanted to get into personalizing your email addresses to get a higher read rate, we'll cover this in a later section, but you can add the field codes here, here and here along the top so that you then have salutation, first name, last name, etc. Anyway, so what we need to do is save this so that the software can interpret it. So I'm going to save this as a CSV file just to make sure that MyEmailer can understand the information that's in it. And I'm going to call it data1. Now that I've done that, I have my list of data, and what I'm going to do is import it into MyEmailer. So I click browse and I choose the file that I've just made, and I want to tick this box because otherwise I could end up with duplicate addresses and end up sending the same email twice to the same person. Now as I mentioned before, it picks up the column headings here, so first name, surname, salutation. You can add all of those into your Excel spreadsheet as the label for the top of each column. Now you remember the word email that I had at the top of the first column, that's what it's picked up for the email address, so that's fine. I can click next and it will start importing the files. Now it's processed successfully 18, it's added the addresses, so if I now go to my lists and I click on addresses for test, you can see now that I have a full list of email addresses that I can now send my template to. And that concludes the second video.